So what catch-up is there going to be? I never fully researched all of the behind-the-scenes materials for House of the Dragon since the start of Season 1. I was kind of up to speed on all the major interviews they gave in June leading up to the August premiere, and then I just could not keep up with all of the behind-the-scenes interviews, behind-the-scenes materials, which are the new Blu-ray commentaries. You know, the Blu-rays don't have features anymore, but they put out free podcast interviews on their YouTube channel. Those are the new commentaries. Or the House the Dragons built behind-the-scenes show, it's 20 minutes per episode. It combined with the inside the episode, that is what would have been a Blu-ray documentary 10 years ago. So that's like 40 minutes of content per episode, not even including like other podcast interviews every major actor has done over the past 3 or 4 years. It's just too much. I mean, even like the dedicated Emma Darcy fan channel or Olivia Cook fan channel has only seen the podcast for that one person. I have to go through all of them. I'm not hunting for anything specific. We know Season 2 had problems. We know why it did. It was a strike and they cut their budget. I'm not hunting for anything. I'm looking for, like, interview with the art designer Jim Clay of these are the things we thought of what would Valyrian architecture look like, or details about Bela's performance from Bethany Antonia. Interesting stuff from the commentaries that puts all this in more context. So it's just basic research that I never got around to because my offline life was in turmoil this whole time. And I've had one hand tied behind my back. That's the mental image I have of I'm juggling with one hand tied behind my back, that you should be able to do two things at once on a YouTube channel. First, keep up with active news. Keep pace with the news, breaking news. And on the other hand, the second thing is working on long-term analysis projects. Anything from like lore videos of, well, this is how Milk of the Poppy works, these are how medicine, other things like that, or their social structure, or just lore dives on this is House Velaryon or House Hightower. I wasn't really able to do that. I wanted to, but if you follow my channel, or if you're new here, remember everything went to hell for me spring of 2022. Now, I think the best year of my channel was probably 2021 because my early years were awful. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't script my videos out. I didn't have a real microphone. I had no idea how video editing worked. And I just plain yelled all the time because I felt like I was constantly being gaslighted about this is not the best show ever from Season 5 onwards. It's turned into nonsense. Season 6 wasn't good. These are terrible. This is just wish listing and vanity projects and stuff. And basically, as angry as most of you were when you were watching Season 8 and the realization of how, no, this is actually really bad, they were playing us for fools, I just hit that a little early with the book fans when we were all really angry Season 5 onwards. And then suddenly it's no one knows what to say now after Season 8 that the complaints were right. But my early stuff was so nonsense with all the yelling. It was counterproductive. People didn't take it seriously. I am embarrassed about the stuff I put out. One day I'm going to remake from scratch better videos explaining these are, like, from a logistical standpoint, behind the scenes mistakes they made. That it's not that they're misunderstood geniuses. This guy is an incompetent rube who, what they said at the Austin Film Fest thing, that this was the world's most expensive film school. From start to finish, they never learned, they didn't know what they were doing. And they hid a lot of things from us that, like, came out in later interviews about, like, even Seasons 1 to 4, what those were really like. What the failed pilot was not an accident, it was a sign of things to come. So I'll be covering all that later, but there came a point in mid-2020 when we were all, quarantined, where I said I have to shift from that, because it would be this whole long-term, decade-long research of what the show had been doing for a decade. I had covered all the Season 8 Blu-ray materials, and I said I have to start covering House of the Dragon casting news, because there were rumors then of, I can't believe, would Matt Smith really be in our show? And then he actually was. So there's this clear point, summer 2020, where I shifted to House of the Dragon news. So I wasn't yelling anymore, because it wasn't about Benioff and Weiss. It was, we're starting over, this great new show, the thrill of new castings. And just the sheer joy we had 2021. Like, remember when we saw those first spy photos from Cornwall, spring of 2021? And the very first one, it's Rhaenyra and Daemon in full costume on a beach. And then seeing the spy photos of everyone going to the Lena funeral scene on the island, and oh my god, that must be young Aegon, and there's Helena and Bela and the rest. Just the fun of meeting all these primary characters, and oh my god, it's Rhaenyra, and there's Alicent and all that stuff. And that'll never come again in terms of meeting main cast members on this show, but that was great. I didn't know how much impact that had. It turns out some of the spy channels like Wake the Dragon said, "Oh, I got into this because I saw your spy report on the Cornwall shoot." I'm just covering news. Don't other people cover filming news? Or do they just report on what they want to be true? Like, it's only me and like half a dozen other major YouTube channels are really paying attention to the week-to-week filming news. And then they complain we have nothing to talk about. Speculation on spy photos. Isn't that like most of what like Star Wars fandom does half the time? Any fandom, I don't know. But I got a lot done in 2021, and we had a good time. We were theorizing what would the show be like. And as I've gone over, spring of 2022, my cat suddenly died of a congenital heart condition that we didn't know he had. And he was normal at Christmas. And then just around the Super Bowl, he wasn't eating that much. We thought, oh, he's got another bladder infection. He has those every now and again. Then, like, the week after the Super Bowl in February, we brought him in, and the vet immediately rushed him to their emergency room and said he is dying. Not just he could die, he is dying. If you brought him in a day later, he would not have made it. Emergency, I literally use a syringe to, pull the fluid out of his chest, but he will at best live another year. And he died a month later in March. And we miss him. His brother still misses him. I knew I would outlive him. The tragedy is just seeing that his brother is half a person from that. But the consolation is the vet said this is officially not normal. That in the over 20 years I've been doing this is the worst heart I've ever seen in a 5-year-old cat. That he had 3 separate things wrong, each of which would have been a death sentence. That, like, he had extra tendons growing on it, that he had a hole in the middle between the valves, which didn't close right. He said 3 things which independently would have been fatal. And I don't know why a 5-year-old cat deserved a death sentence 3 times over. That all he wanted out of... Apparently it was too much to ask for him to just be this cat staring at birds out my window and trying to catch them. That's all he asked, and apparently this ruined some grand celestial plan. That was too much to ask. And people die, and I know people from YouTube who have lost family members during the pandemic or since, and some of this is old age, some of this is from long-term illness. It was the suddenness of it and the utter randomness of it. Combined with, and it's not just, oh, my cat died, and people think, oh, I'm silly, oh, I think you're heartless if you don't think that, but around that time was when the Omicron variant came out, and that was a very rough time, because from the start of the pandemic in early 2020 through around late 2021, I was surprisingly chipper, because I didn't know anyone who was sick, and just, hey, we're quarantined, I guess I'll make the use of the time catching up on projects, but I couldn't go to work or anything. There was no work. Everyone's quarantined. It was a pretty dark time when the quarantine ended, because that's when we really saw just how much it messed up the economy and the job numbers on a scale of years. This would be a hole we'd have to dig ourselves out of. I think just subconsciously, I never really put it into words. Summer 2021, we were all getting the first vaccines. I kind of thought that by fall, hey, there'll be jobs open for everyone. Because I got out of college right before the pandemic. At a grad school, I'd interned for 1 year. I work in historical archives and art museums and stuff because I'm a history major. I do archival work for history stuff. And there was nothing for a fresh out of school person where they go, oh, well, you need work experience. There hasn't been any for 3 years. And we're not going to give any because we don't even have that many openings. There was just too much competition from, even people with like 5 years experience weren't getting jobs in this. So I was getting increasingly nuts from fall of 2021 of, wow, that there are no job postings, the one or two aren't writing back, that we're not just going to snap back to normal after a year of quarantine. So I was already really stressed out from that, of realizing just how big of a mountain we had to climb. And then, oh, randomly my cat had this heart problem and died within a month. And just the callousness of the universe and his innocence, and he was scared of everything except us and his brother. And he's a sweet boy, but it was the exclamation point at the end of a horrible few months where I was getting increasingly stressed out. And I just plain snapped after that, of just the randomness. It was like being struck by lightning. So I didn't even go online for 3 months after that, from March to June. And when I did, I was not well. I was yelling at everyone. I was fighting. I was so bereaved. It just, not just from that. It was from the pandemic, from the stress. I just said, this is the last straw on the camel's back. I am done. And I was yelling at everyone. That got me in a lot of trouble on the wiki, with good reason. But I wasn't mentally well, and I was saying stupid things. I yelled too much. So I was really out of it. And then I was, well, I'll just take any job by fall. That'll make me feel better. And I ended up taking a horrible job that I voluntarily left by the end, because by Christmas, because it was just, you'd have no idea what you're doing. You lied to me about what the work would be. Long story short, imagine if looking me in the eye, I told the person during the interview the equivalent of, well, I only work with Microsoft, not with Mac. I wouldn't know your operating system if you use Mac. And they went, okay, we understand. And then first day sat me down in front of a Mac. Now, it wasn't Mac. It was the program that we use for the historical work. But it's just, I don't know how to do this. I said it to your face, and they knew I was desperate and thought I could just, no, this is a learned skill. The things you need me to do, you lied about. So that's just because I took whatever job I could get, because I haven't worked in 3 years because of the pandemic, and that was a mistake. I should have just done more training in that time. But I somehow thought that in fall of 2022, in this bereaved state, I'd be able to cover House of the Dragon Season 1 and Rings of Power Season 1 and start a new job. That did not work out at all. So then I was so stressed out from this and so weakened, I ended up getting a really bad bronchitis, and it lasted for 3 months. So then again, I had another 3 months shot, and I only woke up from that and started reporting again when filming started up on Season 2 in the next year, spring of 2023, and the one thing keeping me sane was reporting on House of the Dragon Season 1 episodes, making reviews of it. That's not work, that's a gift to me, but it is time-consuming. And just around July of 23, I got my first real job since the pandemic. And I'm sorry to give you all this context. I meant for this to be short. It turned into the real video because it's going well, of just the schedule update. I got my first real job July 2023, entry-level thing, and I mentioned this. And yeah, it took time away because I was busy getting good at it, but this was making me mentally stable after the pandemic. And I've been doing the same job for 1.5 years now, and I didn't know what I'd be doing in spring because I've been there a while, and I learned everything I could, and then, because I had said, I don't know if I'll be staying, a day before Christmas break, my boss came and said, well, I talked with our superiors, we'll give you a small promotion and give you better work to do, bigger responsibilities using different programs. Oh, these are things I want to gain work experience doing. This is the next step from that. So this is career advancement, is my point. So I'm officially the most job stable I've ever been, which is relative. I haven't been feeling this good about that my career is progressing since 2019. That if you think, well, it goes from the spring of 2020 to the spring of 25, I have lost about 5 years of my life from the pandemic disruption. And my bosses did explain, and other people I've met since on the historical, administrative museum circuit for archives and historical research, said this was one of the last things to get funding again, like universities, that not just as an abstraction. I mean, I know from evidence I've seen that my boss said we only really started having jobs in this field again in summer of 2023. So just how hopeless and futureless I felt when I was just desperate for work in 2022 and going nuts, that was pretty much what everyone was going through, though I didn't know it at the time. So I'm doing better now than I have since the beginning of 2020. And with enough time passed, since, I still miss my cat and everything, but he didn't deserve that. But I really regret how loopy I was in mid-2022. I got in a lot of trouble. I yelled at a lot of people. It was a rough, really bad time. I mean, this was probably the worst year of my life, 2022, in 30 years. Since I was a little kid, and in the same calendar year, my parents divorced, and then my grandmother died of a sudden brain aneurysm within the same calendar year. Like, it's you can't top that, but this was a second, distant second, but still. And on top of that, on Christmas Day of 2022, a close family friend died. I mean, granted, he had had cancer for a couple of years. He was not in good health at all, but just that on New Year's Day of 2023, we said good riddance to 2022. We were like, our friend died on Christmas Day. I had this awful job experience, sudden death in the family from my cat, and just all this other shit. 2022 was an awful year for me offline. Why am I saying all of this? Well, I think a lot of you saw Deadpool and Wolverine, the movie, over this summer. It was really good in dealing with, characters who've gone through a lot, and just a line from that movie really hit me at the beginning, where she tells Wade that 6 years ago you took a knee and you never got up. That just, I realized, that verbalized that summer, like March, April 2022, I took a knee and I never really got up just because everything has been in chaos in my offline life, away from the channel. And because of that, I mean, it never destroyed me, despite everything life threw at me, that, I have had one hand tied behind my back since before House of the Dragon began, since that summer. There was only one or two big interview articles and THR stuff coming out. I could at least keep up with those, but once the full series started, I couldn't. So from summer of 2022 to now, I have at most been keeping pace with news. And some people go, wow, you're one of the few people that covers filming news. Well, thank you. But in terms of scrutinizing the behind-the-scenes interviews, I have not gotten to that since season 1, and there are 18 episodes. That's not as much as it sounds, because I think of it as 3 sets of 6, but start with the behind-the-scenes stuff that HBO itself put out, and then major podcasts the directors and the costumer did. And very last, you do interviews with the actors, because the actors, outside of the official ones, they tend to repeat themselves. Because a lot of the stuff they did is promos and things. Not, these are acting decisions I made about how I portray Rhaenyra, or how I'm portraying Aegon. Those are rare, and usually in the official podcast anyway, so the way things are going to go now, like I said, working backwards, is Dunk and Egg is probably October. Filming news starts in March. And even when filming news does come in March, I need to be able to do 2 things at once. That I'm going to be covering filming news while I'm working on catch-up for other info, plus I want to get a start on Dunk and Egg lore videos. I've realized I do about an hour video a week for 6 weeks. That's 6 hours of content, but looking at that 9 months ahead, that's not as much as it sounds. But for 6 videos, an hour-long podcast form, that'd take me, I did the math, it would take me about 2 months to make while I was juggling filming news. So if Dunk and Egg comes out in October, August 1st, I need to drop what I'm doing and purely focus on Dunk and Egg prep, right? That's the schedule we're looking at. Before that, given that we have no other news January, February, I need to get a lot of catch-up stuff done now before we're juggling filming news. And a lot of that will be the big, every interview ever stuff for House of the Dragon since it began. But before that, like in the coming week, I'm going to be cranking stuff out now because my vacation runs long until MLK Day, through late January. I want to start with some looking ahead to 2025 videos. And then I really want to review Lord of the Rings. Starting with the War of the Rohirrim movie, which I saw over Christmas break and was great. And then I want to do retroactive reviews for Amazon's Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power Season 2. Now, I watched it as it was coming out. I just didn't have time to make reviews, and it was drastically better than the first season. Everyone says that, not just me, that it's worth reviewing. It's just, I hope you understand after this whole story I've told you that I hit rock bottom when I couldn't juggle terrible job that I shouldn't have taken in the first place because I was desperate from the pandemic. Late fall, I wasn't ready yet from the stress after the bereavement of death in the family, combined with there's this whole big House of the Dragon, and on top of that I'm going to be doing Lord of the Rings, so... The point is, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power came to symbolize to me, that one project symbolizes to me falling behind and being backlogged. So I know it's not even that big now, it's been a couple of weeks since it came out, but my mental health and determination going forward, I need to prove to myself that, oh look, I reviewed Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. Not all of season 1, like season 1 I'm going to do is 2 videos, part 1, part 2, episode 1 to 4, then the second half. I don't know if I'm going to do individual ones for the second half of season 2 or just cover it that way again, but I need to rewatch them anyway. But for me as a channel going forward, and once I'm caught up with it, I can then report on, oh, there was Lord of the Rings filming news this week. Here's my quick thoughts on it, that if you're caught up with things, it's easier to report on them. But because nothing else is going on in January, after I'm done with New Year's lists, I really need to do Lord of the Rings for my mental health, to rebuild from the hole I fell into at the end of 2022. Then, February, I'm going to be diving into behind-the-scenes stuff. But not just podcasts, I want to start with new material. I got that big new Making of House of the Dragon Season 2 book, and while there's been a quote here or there from it, I haven't really seen anyone else covering it in that much detail, like what I do, where I go line by line with a fine-tooth comb. It's not searching for some smoking gun, it's just, hey, there was interesting stuff in how they made this, and the design, or the cinematography notes sometimes. These are interesting things from the Making of book. I will start with the Making of book, probably by the start of February. Hopefully earlier, I don't know. And then advancing to... Now, I'm going to try to start that by the time winter break ends. So around Martin Luther King Jr. Day is a 3-day holiday in America. So January 20th, I'm going to be trying to start the Making of Season 2 book. And from there, systematically go through all of the official podcasts, all of the House of Dragons built things, rewatch episodes. I'm going to type up the notes to keep them on the wiki again. I fell behind on that. To share them with the world, so you just to pay it forward. I have been getting together with a college friend to rewatch Season 1, that they had never watched Season 1, even until now, because they were afraid of what HBO under the old regime did to the first show. I said, no, it's different people. Season 1's actually really good. And we only got through episode 6 because we keep pausing to talk about and dissect how great the things in it are. That just, it has recharged me watching Season 1 again. So when I said I think of it in bursts of 6 episodes, because I am 6 episodes into a rewatch. So hopefully January, February, I'm able to get through episode 8, because I'm not going back to work yet. And then I'll keep pace with, we watch like 2 episodes a weekend when we do every other weekend, so, because then we watch other stuff, but I'm going to try to keep pace with researching the behind-the-scenes videos with my rewatch. And then I'm saying my mental state is good enough again, work-wise, and with my family and everything. I'm not going to have one hand tied behind my back anymore the way I did for the past going on 3 years. That, the other thing why I wanted to do Lord of the Rings first, like I said, my cat, we first took him to the vet and they said he's dying, he's not going to live that long. It was like a week after the Super Bowl, 2022. That's when the first Rings of Power teaser trailer came out, and everyone reacted to it. It was a terrible teaser, even relative to the show they ultimately made. Then that next weekend, there was this big interview spread in Vanity Fair with the showrunners, where for the first time in 4 years of production, they actually gave details about broadly these are the story arcs we're doing. Oh, well, Galadriel's doing this, we're doing stuff with Moria, and I made a whole big video, I'll link it in this, going, oh, this isn't that bad. In broad strokes, this is kind of what the book story would be of what was going on in the Second Age. I thought they were going to do something really insane. Like, I know people complain about what was on screen. I thought it'd be some bonkers thing like Spider-Man Take Back the Dark or whatever, like some insane thing beyond anything you could imagine. And I went, oh, broadly, this is shaping up. So I made this whole video about how it fueled my curiosity and, oh, well, we might go forward with this. Let's see what they do. The cast seems to be putting a lot of work into it. The showrunners seem at least trying. That was the last video I recorded before my cat got sick, that we found out he was dying. You know, now and again in the past 3 years, I rewatch that video just to hear myself and go, how different I sound, that I wasn't freaking out. This was the last time I was normal, this snapshot of my mental state. I mean, hasn't that ever happened to you guys? I mean, not if you have a YouTube channel, just when you like rewatch old videos, if you have a family member who died. Not just watching videos of the family member, but like other videos of, this is me the year before my grandmother died or something, and going, wow, look how normal I'm acting, because the strain of some major setback hadn't happened to me yet, or something like that. So I went into 2022 with so much energy, thinking I'm going to hit the ground running after the Super Bowl, that there were 6 months between the Super Bowl and the beginning of Season 1, where I was going to get all sorts of behind-the-scenes research done on a scale of years. Like, I never sat down and line by line read Hibbard's book. I wanted to cover that. And remake all of my earlier videos, which I since took down because they were god-awful, of a more presentable documentary on this. These are why Season 6 was really a disaster behind the scenes. Stuff that was shameful they admitted to. Stuff you saw in Season 8 behind the scenes videos, the same stuff was happening in Season 6. I was going to remake all of those. And then I got almost nothing done in the next 6 months between the Super Bowl and when House of the Dragon Season 1 came out. And then it was the strain of I couldn't juggle all in the job situation on top of that. So the last 18 months were really rebuilding for me. I got better every month. The stability of work and that we had consistent news coming out. Only for Season 2 to then have strike and funding problems. But I'm trying to handle that with good humor. I've been half-cocked like a gun. That as I say, I've had one hand tied behind my back, that for the first time since, if you remember the amount of stuff I was getting done when we were covering Season 1 filming news, on a scale of 3 years, I have more energy and more time and more skill level, technical skill level than I've had. That this will be the year I turn the fight around. That I actually get through all these House of the Dragon things that have piled up since it began, that I wanted to get through. I feel like I'm an outsider on some of the inside jokes about, oh, there's that funny thing that that Millie Alcock said in Season 1 in a behind-the-scenes thing, which I didn't watch. That this is the time to catch up, if you're ever going to catch up. And I don't know about other channels, other YouTube channels complaining, oh, there's nothing to do now. Or even during filming season, even if there's no filming news, have you ever covered the behind-the-scenes videos? Because if you haven't, and I'm the only one really aggressively trying to cover and read the making-of book, there's a lot of ground to cover. So I'm trying out new microphone, new animations. This is generally the schedule here of by late January I'm going to get to the making-of book. And then I'm not just going to keep this offline. I'm going to make quick update videos on, oh, here's some really interesting thing that I saw in my rewatch of Season 1 that's going on. That'll probably be coming by late February because it'll take me time to make, but keeping pace with that, and then by late July, I'm going to have to be done with that and moving on to Duncan Egg lore videos that I'll make in advance, like a podcast about the state of Westeros and the Blackfires and all of that. I have to get a start on those podcasts early, as opposed to during the time it's released. And then the hope is that after Dunk and Egg finishes by next Thanksgiving, and they said season 3 is coming out at the earliest summer of 2026, I then have basically 6 or 7 months to prepare for season 3, with a ton of lore videos I wanted to make for season 2 but didn't have time. Again, one hand tied behind my back. Plus other projects, the idea being to hit the ground running with season 3, and then maybe in the aftermath of season 3, on a scale of years, I'll finally get back to remaking behind-the-scenes things on season 6. I take solace in the fact that even, like, Glidus still hasn't gotten through covering all of season 6, because he saved it for last. Because it was happening in real time. He started with season 7, then he went back to season 5. That, hey, I'm in good company if even Glidus hasn't fully gone over in the level he did with, like, season 5, where he would also... He's one of the few other people who does look at all the behind-the-scenes stuff to find embarrassing quotes and go, this is the real context of what was happening. I am not as good of a presenter as Glidus is. He is like a professional comedian. He is funny, he is witty. I'm just a researcher. My hope is that I'm researching this stuff to share with Glidus. I've actually, specifically, Glidus has, DM'd me, like, what are behind-the-scenes things from Battle of the Bastards? This is like a year ago. He hasn't gotten around to it yet, of course. But, like, that's what my purpose is here. I am a terrible person to lead the charge, but my hope is researching behind-the-scenes Game of Thrones stuff helps bigger channels that are better at presenting it share it with the world, or just, oh, this is really cool stuff the House of the Dragon did with, like, the artwork and figuring out what Valyria looked like. I like sharing that so other channels can share it better than I can. I'm the guy down in the archives, the hardcore researcher. I'm not the cool guy on the red carpet, and I've made peace with that. But it still needs to be presentable. So, we've been facing a lot of catch-up in all this, but now is not the time to get discouraged. Strike seasons happen. The algorithm promotes negative comments from the people who are always hating on everything. Things will be better. I don't know how much better, but I'm going to make a whole other thing about the state of the industry that basically, since the drastic problems that Warner Discovery had last August, everything that could go well has gone well for Warner from a business standpoint. So there is still some hope they might get an episode extension again. Just things have been doing very well for them the past 4 months. So we're going to have to see on that. That's the question of the moment. What is the episode count going to be? That'll decide the fate of a lot of subplots. That's where things stand right now. That I was sick, I was on break just mentally, I needed to be on vacation, as it were. Now I'm diving into New Year's catch-up on a couple of TV shows, then Lord of the Rings, then by late January, research mode. And I will be sharing these things with you, starting with the new making of book, so I don't leave you in suspense. We cannot afford to just go on break for another 3 months, to continue being in standby mode for another 3 months until filming news starts. Some news channels don't even tend to make anything until Dunk and Egg comes out, and well, congratulations, that might be October. For other channels that are out, that are making great content, like Red Team Review, Quinn the GM, others who've been, Fantasy Haven made a great Frey video, people need to start the year planning out, now that it's early January of a new year, okay, accepting as a given that there isn't going to be even filming news for a couple of months. This is the time I have free to make Lord analysis videos. And even if you didn't like Season 2, we'll use it as a springboard to analyze the corresponding part of the book. So I'm rambling at this point, but this is the general plan for the coming year, and let's hope I stick to it. I've made grand announcements other years that things didn't turn out. For once, I'd like to actually catch up, and there will be a point where I announce I've gone through all of the major interviews for House of the Dragon, and there might be a point where I go, because I'm leaving the cast interviews for last, because so many of them are redundant, that I'll go, I've officially, as much as I'll ever be caught up, I don't worry about it, because they pretty much share the same things. I should probably ask someone like the dedicated fan channels for specific, like Twitter channels for specific actors, list off everything. Another thing I want to do is on the forums and Reddit, I will actually share, I'm going to crowdsource it, this is my master list of every interview ever. And if you know of something I don't, I'll add to it. So this is going to be a long-term, for the next 6 months, this is an ongoing project of actually scrutinize every interview at least once. Because a lot of the casual news sites and reviewers, they don't read this stuff. They don't report on everything. They're not scrutinizing it to the same level. That we need to get back on our feet again, not just after Season 2, but on the scale of how a lot of us stumbled into the first season of House of the Dragon unprepared for that it would actually be good. Well, I did. I was prepared for it to be good, but I had problems in my personal life. We don't have even a shadow of the infrastructure and organization we had in early Game of Thrones by Season 3. We need that. We need to rebuild. We need to just, if nothing else, put content out there. It helps build the fan networks and fan connections. So I ended up making the full video anyway. I'll split off the first as a promo for this. Stick around right after this. I'm going to be doing my big New Year's in review and year ahead in TV and other things videos. And news will be coming sooner instead of later from a production standpoint. Any day they could just pop up and go, hey, we're giving him 10 episodes again. You can't predict when are they going to make such announcements. But the clock is ticking, and with every day bringing us closer to Season 3 filming, imagine how much that would change things if we get an announcement of, hey, 10 episodes again. So I am officially not hungover from Season 2 anymore, got sick mid-November. I am back, and I'm going to be getting a ton of stuff done while winter break is still going on for the next 2 or 3 weeks. And continuing from that, I'm trying to ride the wave out. So please like and subscribe. A lot of content is coming.